What is going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's Alarm Fantasy Football. It's week 15, the fantasy football playoffs. Did you get it? Did you not get it? Are you still going? What's going on? I'm Howard Bender. Welcome in. Andrew Cooper here. It is Alarm Fantasy Football. And what is up, Coop? How'd the weekend go for? We had a fun weekend over at Fantasy Alarm. How was your personal weekend?
We had a blast, man. My weekend was good in general, but dude, so many of our picks hit. And I just want to hit on the point you had mentioned there about fantasy playoffs and all that is that if you play with us at Fantasy Alarm, like if you're a Fantasy Alarm member and you're in the Discord, you understand that it doesn't ever end for us. I mean, I play DFS until the wheels fall off. I do the FFPC challenge. I play the RT Sports playoff challenges. I'm doing all sorts of Super Bowl prop bets. And the moment that things end, we get right into the free agency articles. We work on our dynasty teams right when they kick open those underdog drafts. And I tell you, they kick them open in like late January now, February. We're in there rocking and rolling. A couple of my drafts from February actually looking like they're going to make me some moolah. So it never stops for us here. But I will say this, just like with every sport, every season, there is one time a year that's more important than any other. This is the Daytona 500 right now, isn't it? This is time. Like this is when you get this is when the casuals like it matters to them, and this is where you get that bragging rights in your office and with your buddies and with everything. So we're here to help you win those leagues, and then we can start with the DFS and the and the dynasty and the underdog and all that. So let's do that, Howard. Let's do it.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Listen, we've got a great show. Obviously, all the waiver wire work that Coop does on the site. I've also got a waiver wire watch list that you guys can check out. Is like a little early preview there. But I mean, listen, if you're advancing to the playoffs, last week was definitely the week, I think, Coop, that you should have shored up your roster. Like really, like set your bench up, handcuffed your players. Because, coming into this week here, there are no bye weeks. It's just straightforward. You should have your starting lineup pretty well set. Like the only time that you should be looking on the waiver wire right now is to shore up that depth for you. Because I have a very hard time. There are some players who are likely on your waiver wire, like a guy like Sincere McCormick, right? He could be on your waiver wire. And we've seen him now, steady increase in carry share, steady increase in target share. He's become, it looks like they're auditioning him for that spot. So maybe he's a flex play for you in there. But again, your waiver wire work right now, this should all be about like shoring up depth and handcuffing your players.
Exactly, especially because we did have a few injuries this week, but it's not like we had like a big panic one. You know what I mean? Like it's not like we lost. Derek Carr got hurt, but is your playoff team really banking on Derek Carr? Maybe in Superflex. It's not. It's not like we lost a major player this week, and everybody's saying, "Oh man, I made the playoffs, but I lost." Kyron Williams or something like that. For the most part, that is the case. I guess maybe if you lost Will Disley or something like that, then you're scrapping a little bit. But for the most part, we're focusing on getting, scraping up useful players, getting the handcuffs we need. Stashing is kind of out the window, and maybe we take a little look ahead to matchups. But I'm fully with you, Howard. I really think, and especially there's certain players, because not every handcuff is built like equally. Like if you have Ramondre Stevenson, you don't necessarily need to handcuff Antonio Gibson, but there are certain players, for instance, Kyron Williams. If you do not have Blake Corum and he's out there on the wire, I'm spending legitimate fab. I'm using my priority because that could save your season. A player like that with the usage that Kyron Williams gets and the usage that Blake Corum could get if something were to happen.
Yeah, Blake Corum, handcuff him. Kendry Miller, that's another big one there that you're probably going to want to handcuff if you're an Alvin Kamara owner. If you're not an Alvin Kamara owner and you have a free bench spot, I'd still go after Kendry Miller because we've seen him now start to like eat into Kamara's work. He took that touchdown away from Kamara, and we know that Darren Rizzi has already said that he's a fan of Kendry Miller. It's like you said on yesterday's Fantasy Alarm show on Sirius XM. You were like, old guy who hates you is out. You're out of the doghouse with the new guy, and it's whatever you can do to show him that you're good to go. So, I mean, I think that we're in a nice spot there. We're in a nice spot.
Yeah, we're feeling good.
Should we say hi to the chat? Should we say hello to everybody who's like hanging out in the chat room right now? I gotta go find it here over on the old YouTubes because I know that I know a lot of people snuck in on us
It's playing. People are in
early
here bright.
questions, right?
Mojo was in here bright and early. Mojo was very, very early. So, but shout out to it. If you get in early, you get the first questions in, and sometimes this place gets popping. So, I do have the first one here from Mojo. Given the early on in the week, it's random, but I need to drop one to make room for waiver wire pickup. Who would you drop out of Bo Nix or Tua? So
Ooh.
that's an interesting one, Aaron.
I guess the question is why do you need to make this waiver wire pickup? Like, one of these guys is your starting quarterback, unless, of course, this is like a third QB.
Yeah, it could
Like,
be, and I do actually have a situation like that where I was scrapping a quarterback a little bit. Bo Nix was on bye, so I wanted to hold on to him.
mhm.
And then you know what? What happens to me a lot of times in the playoffs is that during the season I usually don't roster multiple defenses. This time of year I do a lot of times though, because like I don't want to start, even if I have one of the best defenses in the league. Am I going to start them against the Lions right now, the way that team is playing? Am I going to start them against the Ravens, the way they're playing? So I could see a world where, maybe you want to hold on to a really good defense, but you're playing through. So I don't know. I feel like part of me wants to say keep Bo Nix. Is that crazy? Am I crazy?
I mean, I don't think you're crazy. I mean, I'm gonna go to the schedules right now and see. So Bo Nix against the Colts, the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Chiefs. Those
Miami
are the
plays.
final. Those are the final four games. And considering the Bengals are championship week for Bo Nix, I might wanna
Right.
have him and hold on to him. Miami over their last four games here: the Texans, the 49ers, the Browns, and the Jets. So I think I'm dropping Tua and I'm adding Bo Nix or holding on to Bo Nix because when it comes to championship week, if Bo Nix is going up against the Bengals and you need a QB, I don't know who your starting QB is. I think I'm leaning towards keeping Bo Nix and dropping Tua, even though I like Tua's weapons.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself at a certain point, right? Like the Broncos are 8-5. They're actually looking pretty darn good for a playoff spot. The Broncos are 6-7. One loss and they're done. And their star wide receiver just so happens to need surgery. Like he's already told us, everyone's told us that the moment that the season's done, he's going to have wrist surgery. So if the Dolphins lose a game or lose two games, I see no reason why you hold that off. I mean, what's the point? The guy's clearly hurt. So I do worry a little bit about Tua in that sense. So I think go Bo next.
Cool, 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 cool. All right, next question that snuck in on the early side. Eric was in here. Oh, he wants to find out: are Andrew Cooper and Cooper Rush the same guy? Can we get an image of Cooper Rush here? Let me.
Can we get an image of me throwing really interceptable balls that are just barely not caught by the defense? Because that's what we're getting out of Cooper Rush. I don't know if I don't know if I've gotten to Cooper Rush before. I've gotten to Carson Wentz before. So Cooper Rush looks very similar to my friend Scotty.
Well, it kind of looks. I mean, listen. You know what? It's the ginger. It's the ginger beard that really kind of it puts it over the top. I think.
In person, my beard doesn't have as much red hair as it does show up on the screen. What do you guys think?
It might be. It might be. Yeah, I don't know, man. You definitely have a little Cooper Rush in you.
A little bit.
A little more Carson Wentz. There's no doubt about that, but a little bit of Cooper Rush in there as well. So
All right.
I'm not going to deny that. Eric, it's a
We
very
see you,
good
Eric.
call.
We see you, Eric.
Rod Elliott wants to know: can we get Howard and Coop's top 5 must-add players for the playoff run? If that makes sense, does it make sense? I mean, obviously, it's a touch and go kind of thing here because what we're doing right now is we're waiting for a lot of injury news. Also,
right.
Like I need to know: is Will Dissly out? Because if that's the case, then I want Coop Stone Smart this week going up against Tampa Bay. Right. I want to know.
We're hearing multiple. I'm hearing multiple weeks for Disley. That's what I've been hearing.
All right. Is Garendo going to be out with the foot sprain? If he is, then I definitely want to add Patrick Taylor.
Yeah. We're gonna hit on all the positions one at a time today, Rod. So you go through it. We're gonna give you better than just the top 5 players. We're gonna give you the top players at each position, a couple streamers, a couple stashes. Like top 5, dude. Top 5 is for some shoddy, 5-minute clickbait stuff. This ain't no clickbait. Here's my top 5 ads of the week. We're going to name everybody that we think is relevant and give you the players at each position, Rod. That's how we roll here. So you let us know what position.
Saying hi to Fatty McFats. He's saying happy playoff Tuesday. Rod still, he's stressing right now. Rod, stop stressing. He's got Kyle Pitts. Waiver wire sucks. Would you grab any of these guys over Kyle Pitts? Here you go. Dalton Schultz. No. The Calcaterra wine mixer. Probably not. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to look at the Eagles matchups there. Higbee, no. Likely, no. Hooper, no. I'm using Kyle Pitts in all of those.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All of those guys.
I will say though, and again, this is a bit of a reach. Howard kind of mentioned his name, but let me tell you guys, everyone gather around, take a knee. Let me tell you a little story. Okay. Let's say, picture this. You live in California. You're a stud basketball player. Your parents, also both basketball players. But that's not it. You also play football. Star athlete. You're the quarterback. You play baseball, you play it all. You're a monster. College time comes around, though, you got to figure out what you're going to do, right? So you decide to do football. You go to Old Dominion. You want to play quarterback. Doesn't quite work out. But guess what? You never stop being a stud athlete. You never stop being a stud athlete. So they say, hey, you know what? Let's let you play some wide receiver, right? You're playing wide receiver, making plays, not going to make it at the NFL level. But teams see your frame, 6'4", 230. They say, hey, you know what? Why don't we teach you how to be a tight end? They bring you in. They stick you behind Gerald Everett. They say, hey, Gerald Everett doesn't block either. Maybe you could be a move tight end like him. Things are going pretty good. Gerald Everett even misses a game. You go out, score a 50-yard touchdown. Awesome sauce. Everything's great. Boom, rug pull. They get rid of the coach that liked the move tight end. They bring in Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, and they want these hand in the dirt guys. Will Disley, Hayden Hurst, you end up on the back burner. Guess what? Hayden Hurst, done. Will Disley, done. Now is the time, and you've been ready all your life, and your name is Stone Cold Smart. This is the week, Howard.
Saw a 37% snap share this past week coming in relief, right? Caught all three of his targets for 54 yards, and it's the Bucs this week. They ranked 27th in DVOA against the tight end. They're giving up the 6th most fantasy points per game to the position. So, yeah, I mean, listen, especially if you've got like a banged up Lad McConkey. We're not sure exactly what he's going to do. And then, Quentin Johnston drops footballs. Joshua Palmer drops footballs. So I like the Stone Smart call here. I'll shout it out also. I mean, if we're just going to just zap in some tight ends, there should be a video posting at Fantasy Alarm, a little video short for 1 week. And I named 3 streamers that you can use. So, I mean, we might as well just hit the tight end streamers and waiver wire for what you've got in the article, but here you go. You ready for this one here, Coop? I'm just going to lay it out for you. In addition to Stone Smart, Juwan Johnson, 72% snap share, 23.8% target share, caught 4 passes for 50 yards and a touchdown. There's no Taysom Hill, and he's got the Commanders. They face they're like the 21st ranked team in DVOA against the tight end. So Juwan Johnson with no Taysom Hill, he pops for me.
I would have had him 1 if Derek Carr didn't break his hand. That's
agreed,
sucks, man.
Agreed. Well, I mean, listen, Jake Hayner's a thrower. He's not like it's not like having Taysom Hill who throws like little wobbly air balls out there. So I think Hayner's okay there, and I like him definitely better than who's the other chucklehead that they had?
There's a lot of backup quarterbacks that would have been brutal. Like, if you have guys like Malik Willis or Justin Fields, it's a good point, Howard, that he is a thrower, right? He's a passer, so you'll be all right there.
And then it was Stone Smart, Juwan Johnson, and then Daniel Bellinger from the Giants. 78% snap share this past week, 7 targets, caught 5 passes, 45 yards, faces the Ravens. Now, the Ravens ranked 25th in DVOA against the tight end, I believe. They give up the 9th most fantasy points per game to the tight end. The matchup is changing for the Ravens, and they are coming off the bye week, so you do have to be careful with that. Kyle Hamilton's healthy. They've added Tre'Davious White to that secondary. So if I'm ranking these guys, I'm still going Juwan Johnson first. I'm going Stone Smart second, and then I'm going Daniel Bellinger third.
Yeah, I also, the one thing I want to keep an eye on for Stone Smart is that Hayden Hurst, like, we really don't quite know what's going on with him. Like, he's been practicing. He's had some kind of off-field stuff going on. He was an inactive this week. If Hayden Hurst is active, then I'm fully on board with Juwan over him. You know what I mean? Things for Stone Smart to be the guy, you really need Lad McConkey to be. If Lad McConkey and Will Disley and Hayden Hurst are all out, then I'm definitely all the way in on Stone Smart. But you're right, Howard. Depending on the week shakes out, he might not end up being as fun or as awesome as we think.
Point of order, sir. Hayden Hurst is on IR.
Oh,
He
is.
went on IR in late November, so he's actually not coming back. Your big concern is some dude named Tucker Fisk.
Yeah, I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about Tucker, because the thing with Stone Smart is he played all those snaps. He played like 16 of them from a wide receiver spot. They kind of just said, "Hey, you're a big slot tight end. We're going to let you do what you do well." So, and he
Right,
caught.
but if McConkey's back, I
If
don't see
McConkey's
him
back, that
lining up
hurts
as
him.
much as a wide receiver this week.
Yeah, I mean, they're never going to really have him play full time inline tight end. That's just not what this guy's going to do.
Any other tight ends that you were looking at?
I mean, just for like stashing purposes, or I guess really deep leagues, like a guy like Noah Gray is actually viable. But if something happens to Kelsey, now he moves up. Isaiah Likely, we saw it last year, last 5 games of the season. Isaiah Likely was a tight end 1. When you look at a guy like Stone Smart, there are other guys that do very similar things that could have big upside if the starter gets hurt. Like if Trey McBride goes down, Elijah Higgins could step into a role. That's just some things, deep things to keep an eye on. But you named pretty much all the guys we're thinking about.
All right, beautiful. Well, then we can go back to. You want to go back to the chat? We'll go back to the
Let's see what
chat.
the chat things. Let's see what
Let's
the chat
do it.
thinks.
Let's do some chat things here. How about Jerry's in the house? One of his teams limped in. Lamb, no QB. Neighbors, no QB. Engram, no QB. This should be an interesting first week of the playoffs. Yes, it should. Yes, it should. Andy Coop in the house. Love and likes for Laney. Guys, as always, if you're watching here on YouTube, hit that like button, please. We'd love for you to subscribe as well. Never miss anything, because listen, we're going to carry this show throughout the playoffs here as we kind of go through it, helping you guys out to win that championship. And then, of course, you don't want to miss any of the shows. The NBA DFS show with John and Pemba and James Grande, that's an absolute killer. We're going to start doing some baseball work with MLB as the winter meetings kind of wrap up here. So never miss a fantasy alarm show at all. Always get notified. Hit that subscribe button. If you're watching us on Twitter or Twitch or wherever, come on over to the YouTubes and hit that like button for us as well. I love the fact that Laney is a secret little Rams fan, by the way.
She's not, though.
That makes me so happy.
That's not happening. There are pictures.
So happy.
There are pictures of me.
I'm going to buy her a little Puka Nakua onesie now.
There are pictures of me and my sister as kids just dressed up in Ram stuff. It didn't stick. My sister ended up being a Dolphins fan, so she got a little confused, but I successfully and correctly ended up being a Patriot.
Annie Coop, I got your back on this one. Laney, 100% Rams fan.
It's not happening.
100%. We're going to shower her with Rams gear now, from now until for every birthday. She's getting something Rams oriented now from
Patriots. She walks around going, touchdown Patriots.
No, she does not.
She does touchdown.
She does not. She doesn't, because you guys don't score touchdowns.
Yeah, well, we were on the bye week last week, so we didn't celebrate any touchdowns.
I got your back, Auntie Coop.
No, it's not happening.
I do.
It ain't happening.
Joshua K. Oh, like old times with the playbook and dartboard. Oh, thank you very much, man. Yeah, that was and Pemba does amazing work. He really does. I definitely filled in nicely for him. We are in negotiations right now for the potential of me just doing it again, because all the NBA work is piling up on him. So I'm here to help. I'm here to help, and let's get that going there. Some great lineups for sure. Great lineups for sure. What's this? Rod says Stone Smart. Another one on the wire. Yep. Over Pitts?
Possibly. Pitts still got 6 targets, only caught 1. Absolutely. He's been just so brutal. But again, we have to see how things shake out with the rest of the lineup for the Chargers. I think the number one thing is the health of Lad McConkey. If Lad McConkey's out, then I would actually straight up start Stone Smart over Coppins.
All right, beautiful. Yo, Eli the Reaper, he comes in, wins by 0.04 this week. That it doesn't matter how much you win by, as long as you win. I love that. I love that. Hi, Hope. Jerry Nelson wants to know Eagles defense or Ravens defense. Let's talk. Do we want to stream some defenses here, Coop?
Let's hit them. Yeah. So I'm going to have probably both the Eagles defense and the Ravens defense ahead of the ones that are available. The Eagles this week in week 15 are going up against the Steelers. And I'll have the Ravens ahead because they're facing the Giants. Like if you can start the Ravens against the Giants, you do that absolutely. Eagles defense has also been very good. If you're looking to the wire, like defenses that are rostered in less than 50% of leagues, one of our classic maneuvers, Washington on their bye week was dropped to a lot of waivers, and their defense has been playing better. They're playing the Saints, and now no Derek Carr, no Chris Olave, no Taysom Hill, no Rashid Shaheed. It's just if you want a safe matchup, it's probably Washington versus New Orleans. Also, we're getting a revenge game, Howard. Desmond Ritter against the Atlanta Falcons. That kind of puts the Atlanta Falcons on the table for me as a defense that's just out there in a ton of leagues, just available in like they're available in 90% of leagues. So if you really are in a spot where a lot of defenses are rostered and you need to start one that's just out there like everywhere, that they're available. But for the most part, you're still going to stick with obviously a team like Baltimore against the Giants. That's incredible.
I thought you were going to talk about the Marshawn Lattimore revenge game narrative over there against the Saints again. So
Double revenge.
Speaking of which, shout out to Greg Martinez. What's up, Greg? Congratulations, by the way, on making the playoffs. I think he like just barely won his matchup last night. Sent me a Twitter DM. But I mean, excellent question here. If we're looking at running backs, who the heck is the Browns starting running back? Ford versus Chubb right now.
Yeah. So what they've been doing for most of the time since Chubb came back and Ford came back, because Ford also got hurt, is they were kind of doing what the Ravens do. Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb were kind of the early down backs, and then Ford and Justice Hill were the pass down backs, which Ford wasn't really getting any carries for a while there, just like Justice Hill doesn't. As of late, though, they've still been skewing that way where it's Chubb on the early downs and Ford on the passing downs. But the last 2 games, he's got 9 and 10 carries. Not to mention, you look at the schedule, right, that the Browns face. It's the Chiefs. It's the Dolphins. They have another tough matchup to wrap it up. Like, I don't see why. I just don't. I don't. Is it Chiefs, Bengals, Dolphins? I don't see how Ford isn't going to be on the field a ton. So he's in my streamers article this week. If you want to hit on running back real quick, I can just knock that out.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So at the top ads for me at running back, number 1, if he's available, would be Tank Bigsby. And I say Tank Bigsby because he has startability now, and ETN is active. He's playing, and Bigsby's getting the carries over him. 18 carries to 4 this week for Bigsby. The other one would be Sincere McCormick. I personally think he's run well enough to earn that gig, but there are the question marks with Zamir White and Alexander Madison potentially coming back down the stretch. That's the difference maker between Bigsby and McCormick at the top, is that Bigsby, I think, is kind of locked in, whereas McCormick, he's looked good. I think he deserves it, but we can't guarantee that they don't just give those guys the job back when they get back. So, but both those guys, decent ads. For streamers, Bigsby's got a decent matchup. I mentioned Jerome Ford. Keep an eye on the Isaac Garendo news. Howard mentioned it last night on the SiriusXM show. Of the guys that have been around that team the longest, that have been around the NFL the longest, and that do the things that the 49ers want them to do, Patrick Taylor is the best bet. He's been around the team. He got the snaps last week. He's a great pass catching back. Anyone that remembers him from the Packers knows that he can catch passes out of the backfield. So he's kind of your PPR option. As always, on the table in your desperation, especially standard leagues, Tyler Algier. I mean, like for a reason, they like throwing him in there, just like Tyler Algier, Kendre Miller now in that range where it's like, hey, you know what? If they're going to give these guys between 5 and 10 carries and they might get a goal line touchdown in your standard and half PPR leagues, those guys are on the table. For stashes, there's one stash that I kind of moved up just because he could carve out himself a role without anyone getting hurt. That's Kamani Vidal. We're watching Kamani. Well, Gus Edwards is not looking. There's no doubt about it. Like, he's kind of struggled. Kamani Vidal has carved out more of a role for himself. So you got to keep an eye on the way that's progressing. He's a stash. He's kind of tough to start. That's why I put him in the stashes. But I mean, he could really start to take over a little bit. After that, it's back to the guys that we've been talking about. Blake Corum, number 1. Kyron Williams plays the entire game. If he goes down, next man up. He could end up playing the entire game. That's what Sean McVay likes. Trey Benson, I mean, the schedule for the Cardinals is Patriots, Panthers, Rams. The Panthers' offense is playing better, but their defense is still their defense. So Trey Benson, if anything happens there, and then it's the normal guys that we've been looking at. Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen, Ray Davis. Pretty much any backup running back named Davis is a decent option. Jalen Wright. Now that Raheem Mostert's banged up, you just got to paint yourself a picture of like, okay, if the starter for this team goes down, do I actually get something or no? Because a lot of these teams, that's not the case. Like if the starter goes down, they split. We saw it with Joe Mixon when he was down. Daria Gumbawali on pass downs, Damian Pierce on rundowns. I mean, that sucks. So like you got to just look for one-for-one replacements if you can find them. Cam Akers maybe if Aaron Jones goes down, Howard. You're like, you only want to stash like the top guys, but just keep in mind these names.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you've got to, one of the things that you don't want to do is you don't want to keep churning over your bench
Right.
for, stash plays, because you're going to end up letting go somebody who probably is a little higher up in the pecking order of their roster, whether it's a wide receiver or a tight end or something like that. You're still going to end up letting somebody go that you might not need to. Why? Because you want to stockpile 4 different potential backup running backs. This is about roster management. This is about picking and choosing the best players out there. Like a handcuff to your player is definitely the priority for you. Looking at other people's handcuffs or blocking another team, that has low priority. One of the things that I think that everybody kind of forgets, and we see this a lot when people are setting their lineups, you put your best foot forward. Stop looking over the fence. Stop being like, oh, well, this guy's got Jamar Chase. So do I start, Josh Allen or Joe Burrow? I want to start Joe Burrow because, I'll negate Jamar Chase's points. No, you don't want to work it like that. Like that is not, unless you're playing like a 2-week or a multi-week playoff matchup or Super Bowl, that's when you can start looking at that. But when it comes to setting your lineup or making waiver claims, do yourself a favor. Stop looking at what everybody else has and look at your roster. If you have a bench spot to give, that's a different story, right? Like shore up your roster. If you've got top, the 2 best running back handcuffs, and you've got some wide receiver depth, and you've got a backup QB or a backup tight end, right? If you've got that locked in there and then you still have a roster spot to give, then you can explore adding somebody to block or whatever, but stop looking at what your opponent could or could not start this week and just focus on your own team.
Yeah, and I do want to say one thing, because like a lot of people might be thinking to themselves, like, oh, everybody, including you, Coop, tell me roster other people's handcuffs, right? That is a draft mentality. That is a preseason, early season mentality where you have 12 weeks for their running back to get hurt, and then you have the guy. At this stage in the season, there's only 3 games left, right? Like trying to thread that needle of your opponent's guy getting hurt and then you being able to use his backup and hurt him, like that's out the window now. We shift early in the year, maybe we do that. Now you shift. Now we shift to focusing on our team and putting the best team out there that we can and insulating ourselves. Kyron Williams, Blake Corp, get that done. You know what I mean? So absolutely, Howard's right on that, and that's the difference between early season and end of season. Totally different game.
Yeah. Back to the chat. Say hi to Rex Timotheus, who's we did have amazing Thanksgiving breaks. He's in 6 playoffs. I love that. I love that. All right, listen, man. Mathematically eliminated from the last 5. These things happen. I'm playing in 103 leagues, and I still have playoffs, like regular seasons that go to week 15. Those beat Howard Bender, some of those beat Howard Bender leagues. But in, other leagues right now, I'm rocking like a 53% playoff share, which is solid. Rock solid for that many teams.
Yeah, I'm doing decent in that. I will say I checked my Best Ball Mania advance rate. They say that like 15% is solid, 20% is good, 23.4%, Howard. We got some teams. We're chasing that dough, baby. Let's get it.
Love it. Joshua Latshaw in here. He's got Kyler Murray and Bo Nix. One QB league, 4 points for passing. Is there a reason for me to pivot to Jameis Winston, or am I overthinking it?
I think that might be overthinking it. The thing with Jameis, though, which I really love about Jameis, is he's willing to chalk it. I mean, That one Thursday game in the snow, he didn't throw a ton, but it was, it was a snow game. In the other games, 5 games now, he's thrown over 40 times in every game. He's averaging over 46 attempts in the other games. And when you look at that schedule that I mentioned earlier on the show, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Miami, Baltimore, even if you play through week 18, like, why would Jameis Winston stop throwing like crazy? In 4-point passing, though, I'm keeping the mobile guys. If this was a 6-point passing thing, I might go Jameis. But Jameis is my top QB ad of the week. If you just want to knock that out real quick, top QB ads are Jameis Winston. In deeper leagues, you got to give some credit to Bryce Young. He's thrown a touchdown pass in every single game. He would have had 2 this week if Xavier Legette just had a little more dog in him at the end there. Almost stole $3 million from that guy. But schedules are good on those guys. For streamers, it's Jameis if he's out there. If he's not, another classic move. Team goes on bye. Somebody drops Drake May. He's got mobile upside. He's got an okay matchup with the Cardinals. Like, that's the kind of world you live in. For stashing, the time for stashing is out the window. There's really no bye weeks. There's no like developmental guys. Like Bryce Young is kind of the only guy that's really, you're looking at him. He's coming on strong. If you're in those like multiple QB leagues, the super flex leagues, the 2 QB leagues, and you're just like looking for a Hail Mary that might be able to help you out, just if you're going to stash backups, either stash guys that could outright get a look, like maybe Trey Lance gets a look, I don't know, or stash mobile guys. Like,
I'm not stashing anybody like Trey Lance or Justin Fields with 3 weeks to go.
But Superflex, where it's like, if you're some people, because what happens in Superflex sometimes, Howard, and I've seen this, is you'll make the playoffs, but if Derek Carr was your QB2, like you might not even, you might just have nobody, you might just be starting regular position players in the flex. That's where I say, okay, what if, again, it is tough, but like Justin Fields, we saw him play a few. So it is guys like that in crazy deep leagues. But you're right, Howard. In any sort of normal league, you really can't be rostering back.
Yeah.
We're talking,
I wrote my article in the New York Post on drawing that line. Like, just because it's a super flex league doesn't mean that you have to start a QB in that spot. Like, I'm not going to put in Justin Fields or Trey Lance and hope that they get like some late rushing yardage over a legitimate wide receiver or even a tight end who could score me 8 to 10 points. Like, we talk about the line.
If Fields was the starter, though, if Fields was if let's say Russ got hurt and Fields was starting, then it's a different story.
If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle.
There you go. Yeah. Well, there you go. That's why they're in the stash column, folks. I'll say the last name just because crazy deep leagues. Malik Willis looked pretty decent when Justin Fields went down. Jordan Love went down.
I don't even know if crazy deep leagues, if you're really fishing for those guys at this point in the playoffs, I think your team is in more trouble, and you barely scraped into the playoffs at that point. So
sure.
I don't know. I got a problem with that. Joshua has a problem with me talking about all gingers looking alike. Listen, there are 2 kinds of gingers out there, right? There's just the gingers that we all just like to make fun of, like Coop.
Fair.
Right? And then there's the freckled gingers who get a freckle for every soul that they steal. Those are the ones you have to be careful with. Those are the ones you have to watch out for. Coop is not a soul-stealing ginger. You got to watch, I don't see no freckles.
I'm just your run-of-the-mill. Little salt, pepper, and paprika in the beard,
Joshua K says Baltimore, Atlanta, Dallas, or Howard's Jets. Stop saying they're Howard's Jets. They're not.
Why is Baltimore available? Oh, because they went on bye.
Yeah. All right, Baltimore.
Baltimore versus the Giants.
Dallas against Carolina. That's the thing. Like, I'll go with Baltimore against the Giants for sure. I get that Dallas is facing Carolina, but didn't we not just see the Eagles defense struggle against Carolina?
Right.
Maybe they were looking past it, but just
because the Panthers have now
still a shitty defense.
The Panthers won 2 games, and then they brought the Chiefs, the Bucks, and the Eagles to the wire. I mean, every one of those games, right? Like 3-point games, essentially all of them. Like, I don't know. The Panthers, and you can't just run them over right now. The Jets versus the Jaguars. That one's kind of interesting, though. Would you go Baltimore versus Giants or Jets versus Jaguars?
I'm going Baltimore against the Giants.
Yeah.
The Jets have nothing to play for, and look at them. Like, they've crumbled the last couple of weeks. They've just given they get out to a lead. God forbid they hold on to it, right? I mean, this team is coasting into the end. They know it's over for Aaron Rodgers. The only one who's really that you want to play from the Jets, like I will build a DFS lineup that uses Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson this week because it's the Jaguars.
Right.
But I won't even use I won't use Braylon Allen or any of the running back. Like I'm not gonna because the only one that's playing for anything on that team right now is Aaron Rodgers, and it's just pride based. That's it. That's it. Screw him.
Agreed. The Patriots need to step up their losing. Both the Jets and Pats at 3-10. Need to get that left tackle. Yeah, I hear people saying the Patriots should draft a wide receiver. I'm just like, please, no.
Oh, everybody says that you guys are going all in on T. Higgins.
Probably also
You're just going to drop a buttload of money on T.
That'll be good. Mr.
Fantasy FF247 wants to know, do we like Jameis Winston this week? I don't hate Jameis Winston this week.
You just know what you're getting yourself into. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to throw a ton. It's going to be kind of all over the place. You know, he probably have some turnovers, but the way I look at it is the way that they're going out and they're playing and they're running the tempo. I don't see a world where he just goes out and throws like 20 times. They would have to beat the Chiefs via running the football. And I just don't see that happening. So I think he actually is a pretty decent start.
All right. Let me see your shirt. Here you go.
Oh, there we go, dude.
Oh, Grateful Dead tie-dye. There you have it. Right? It's making the eyes pop, isn't it?
I just have a blue shirt.
Nobody wants to see your blue shirt.
Oh, they have to.
Happy holidays, guys. I'm so proud to be part of the FA Nation. Absolutely. Let's win our playoff matchups. Yes.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Mr. Fancy might stream Stone Smart in the play. Yes. Do it.
Format. That's the format.
That's the format you want Stone Smart.
Yes.
No doubt. What's the ceiling for Lamar this week? I'm worried that it'll be a Derrick Henry game.
The ceiling from Lamar Jackson in any given game is 5 touchdowns.
There you go.
You know what I mean? If the Giants can push back at all, Lamar will destroy them.
I agree. And listen, you know what? Coming off of the bye week also, yeah, you might see a lot of Derrick Henry, but I could definitely see a lot of, Justice Hill in the second half. Because you gotta keep this team fresh for the playoffs. You had the bye week. You want to get them back on track this week. Use this game against the Giants as a nice little tune-up. Derrick Henry runs wild early, and then you let Lamar throw the football more just to kind of get onto that same page with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely and Zay Flowers and, making all that happen. So,
right. And again, our ability to predict how these teams crush these other teams isn't always that easy. Like, look at Jared Goff. They've crushed teams and he's thrown for 95 yards, and they've crushed teams and he's thrown 4 touchdown passes. Like, all I know is that Lamar Jackson has like 6 different games with 3 touchdowns. He has 2 games with 4 touchdowns, and he has a game with 5 touchdowns. So the ceiling for this guy against a team like the Giants is 5 touchdowns.
And the floor is not even lava.
Not lava. No.
Not even lava. All right, let's see. What do we got? Jack Ladd wants to know, hey, guys, should I start this week in full point PPR, Ertz or Henry, Goff or Tua, Baltimore or Cincy D? Listen, the answer is never starting the Cincinnati defense. I'll just say that right now. They're terrible. They are. They're bad. Like, they gave up 20 points to the Dallas Cowboys yesterday, and the Cowboys looked like garbage. Right? What Rico Dowdle? What did he rush for? Over 120 yards?
131.
Come on. It's never the Cincinnati defense there.
Nah.
It's never. Do you like Hurts or do you like Hunter Henry? I mean, this is all preliminary stuff. Right. So, just keep in mind it's Tuesday and a lot can happen over the course of the week. But Hurts versus Henry, I mean, they're kind of similar guys. It's Spider-Man pointing at himself.
Right. Yeah, Hunter Henry just offers a little bit more in terms of, like Ertz is straight up catch and fall down. Like Hunter Henry offers a little bit more after the catch. He's also, doesn't have to deal with a Terry McLaurin because they don't got one. So for me, I look at Hunter Henry in this matchup this week against the Cardinals, who've been, you can throw against them for tight ends. I'm going that way, but it is close enough. But Hunter Henry, since Drake May has become the starting quarterback, is like a top 6, 7 player, tight end in targets per game. Like he's got a bunch of these games with 9 targets. I feel comfortable with both those guys, but Hunter Henry's been a little bit better.
Jared Goff against the Bills this week. Tua taking on the Texans.
Man.
Like, how do you not start Jared Goff against the Bills when you just watched Matthew Stafford like zipping around the football the entire time? Like, you'll run hard against the Bills, but Josh Allen is not going to be kept down. And this is like, what I love about this game is that this game could be like a preview of the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I mean, like that if the Super Bowl was last week's matchup, I'd be fine with that. Like, there are a lot of fun games out there, man. There's a lot of fun teams out there. That's kind of why, like, I just want the Chiefs to go away. Yeah, they're just not right now. They're just not fun to me. Like, there's so many of these like good stories. The fan bases that deserve it, like the Bills and the Lions. Now I kind of understand what it's like watching certain eras of the Patriots, like as a fan that wouldn't like them, because there were times where the Patriots are boring, right? There were times where they were fun, but there were definitely times where they were boring and they were getting all the calls. Now I understand everybody. So I apologize because I was a jerk that whole time because I'm a Patriots fan and it was awesome. That was awesome. I would just be like, oh, Tom Brady, he just wins.
Can we mark this moment here? Where are we at? We're at the 42-minute mark here of the show.
I get it. If I was obnoxious during 2007 or 2011, I don't apologize because during those years, Randy Moss was scoring 23 touchdowns. Tom Brady was throwing 50. Like, I don't apologize for those years. For the boring years, I will apologize because the Chiefs are boring me, and I just want to see them go away. I want to see the Lions play the Bills in the Super Bowl.
That would be nice.
Yeah,
it would be nice.
Hell yeah, we're gonna get the Chiefs against the Ravens.
All right, so Greg standing tall here. In Kirky, I trust. So here's a guy who in the last 4 games has thrown no touchdowns, has 8 interceptions, and looks absolutely atrocious and lost out there with this team. But he's going up against the Commanders and Week 17, and it's Benjamin St. Juste. Like, I don't even know if I could trust Kirk Cousins to stay on my roster to Week 17 at this point.
I know, which so many people were sitting there. Same thing with Will Levis. Like, the people that were looking at the schedule, I mean, Kirk has Raiders, Giants, Commanders, Panthers Week 18. So the wheels fell off. All those people doing the best ball correlation, Howard, and sitting back and saying, look at the schedule for Kirk Cousins and Drake London. I mean, and Kyle Pitts, and stacking those guys up. Those stacks didn't even make the playoffs. And if they did,
meanwhile, it's all Bijan Robinson now.
Right. Like, like it's way she goes. So I don't know. I don't trust that guy.
I'm not going to trust him either. Fatty McFat says that he's stolen so many souls.
I don't doubt it, Fatty.
I don't doubt it either. I don't doubt it either. Let's see. What do we got? After a fugly ginger performance from Cooper Rush, are we still okay with Jake Ferguson?
I'll tell you, I was never really okay with Jake Ferguson. I said it from the start. With guys like Jake Ferguson and Dalton Schultz, I was just like, what are you expecting? These guys are not particularly athletic. If Dak Prescott, during the stretch where Dak Prescott was healthy and Brandon Cooks was out, yeah, Ferg was fine. But, like, what are you expecting to happen in these games, man? Cooper Rush looks bad, and Ferguson is not a guy that creates on his own. It's not like you got a Jonnu Smith out there that you can throw a screen and say, hey, go do something with it. Like, that's just not who Ferguson is. He needs all those targets. He needs the targets. He needs the touchdowns, and he's just not getting them. So cannot trust that guy.
Cannot trust that guy at all. By the way, Hope wanted to see my shirt because she too is wearing a Grateful Dead shirt. See, we're right there, Hope. You and me. Yeah. Man, smart woman, smarter playoffs. Hope got the bye week.
That's B. Voitko. Why'd you change your name, dude? I was actually just looking at some of the best balls, and Voitko's doing really good in some of the Fantasy Alarm ones. I'm going to do a little family update in the Discord when I get a chance. But yeah, he's doing well.
You're cutting off my Grateful Dead flirtation with Hope so that you could talk to Voitko? Come
It's
on.
hey, his comment was in before Hope's.
Come
Let the
on.
record show. I'm a
I didn't want to
man.
out him. I didn't want to out him so much. I didn't want
I'm a
everybody to,
man of I'm a man of order.
be so sneaky. Rod Elliott wants to know if Butker returns, do we still trust him as a top kicker? I don't think we can trust any kicker at this point as a top kicker. Justin Tucker was a top kicker. Can you trust him?
Now, and the thing about Justin Tucker is that, like, if they were to release him, he would get picked up by another team and then probably play for another decade and be really good. But it's just like that's what happens. Adam Vinatieri, the Patriots released Adam Vinatieri when he was Tucker's age, and they went and had a second career with the Colts. It's kickers are weird, man. They're like goalies. Once they get in their head, you just gotta they need a change of scenery or something.
Agreed. All right. Rod wants to know, would you just keep rolling out the Pittsburgh D or go after Atlanta or Washington? I'm rolling out the Pittsburgh D.
I'm not even just rolling out. I'm rolling out TJ Watt. That's what I'm doing. That's what you're
That's
doing.
the thing, with like defenses, people get into that habit. They're constantly worried about points scored. You know what? Like, I get it. You get that 10-point bonus for the shutout or whatever. If you're fishing for that, then you're making a mistake. You're looking at it incorrectly. You need to do is you need to look for sacks. You need to look for turnovers. That's what generates the points. It's
Right.
very difficult to hold a team down to 0 points, 3 points, even just 7 points in the NFL because it's the NFL.
Yeah.
So
I mean, think about the players. TJ Watt is making plays, right?
Yeah.
For a while, remember Trevon Diggs scored a touchdown every week? Yeah. Remember Devin Hester? The Bears defense was incredible that year. It's like, who's got Keenan Nwangwu? It's like, think about who's going to make the plays that are going to score the points. It's not that much different than thinking about these offenses. Who's going to make who do they have people that can make plays? Right? TJ Watt is always getting his hands on the ball somehow.
if Brees returns, where do you rank him? RB2 or would you try to avoid him? I mean, if he returns, you still have to, use him. He's going up against Jacksonville. I mean, yeah, I definitely would put him as at least an RB2. I think he's an RB1.
Right. Because there's 32 teams and there's 24 RB2s. And how many teams have split backfields? How many, are you going to rank one of the Broncos running backs ahead of Brees Hall? No. Are you going to rank Ramondre Stevenson ahead? No. It's like, but are you going to rank either of the Raiders running backs? No. It's like, once you start just naming NFL teams, it's so easy to put Brees Hall in the top 15 every week. Right? And so many teams don't have, some of these teams have no fantasy relevant players.
That is true. All right. Well, look at that. We've gone through the whole chat here. We thank everybody who's been watching this entire time. I'm looking at the numbers for everybody who's in here. It's a great mark there, especially if you guys are all heading towards the playoffs.
Yeah.
Got a lot of ground to cover here. Coop and I are going to be, again, we'll be here again tomorrow talking lineups. We got the Thursday night live stream with John Impemba and Eric Romoff. They're getting you guys ready. Coop's going to be on Fantasy Alarm Sirius XM tonight from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. My good friend Eric Hinsky, he's going to be dropping by to give us an update on that MLB All-Star Draft, All-Star League, $25,000 entry fee, winner take all. So good. And then Coop will be back with me on Thursday and Friday on Sirius XM. And we got all this stuff here. Of course, we're going to hit wide receivers before we go, Coop. I was going to ask you if you had some more thoughts on this. What do you got?
I do. All right. Wide receivers, then we'll get you guys out of here. This is the first thing you do. Because to me, and I wrote about this in the article, there's a pecking order of how you should approach it. And again, I can't see all your leagues. I know some people are in deep leagues, some people are in the Scott Fish Bowl, some people are in shallow leagues. First thing you do is check to see if Cedric Tillman or Romeo Doubs were dropped. Because they've been out 2 weeks with concussions and they have been dropped, especially last week with 6 teams on bye. If they've been dropped in your league, prioritize those guys. Romeo Doubs and then Cedric Tillman is how I'm doing it. Those guys are full-time split ends on good offenses, or at least offenses that like to throw the ball. Those are the first guys, right? Next, I'm seeing if Adam Thielen is there. I mean, just back-to-back weeks with 8 and 9 catches. If he's there, go for him. If he's not, I'll go for Xavier Legette. Back-to-back weeks with 8 targets, just barely missed on the touchdown there. These guys are the guys you got to prioritize. Doubs, Tillman, Thielen, and Legette. For streamers, DeMario Douglas in full PPR, besides the Jaguars game where he got sick and the Jets game right after that where it was a bad matchup, this guy's caught at least 4 passes in every single game for the last like 7 games. I mean, he's a he's a good floor play in PPR. After that, another guy very similar in PPR, Ray McLeod. You could look at Noah Brown if he comes back from the rib. I guess if you're in a crazy deep league, maybe I mean Van Jefferson's getting the snaps if George Pickens is out, but like that's a tough one. For stashes, we really shouldn't be stashing at this point, but I guess Hollywood Brown's going to come back if you're in a really deep league. Ricky Pearsall, I would say Ricky Pearsall is the only guy where like if either of the top 2 wide receivers ahead of him got hurt, I would consider starting him. Howard, that's one guy, but just because of the way that scheme works with the fullback and the tight ends and only 2 wide receivers. But beyond that, there's not really much you should be stashing. I guess maybe Jalen McMillan, but that's about it. And then we didn't hit on kicker. Kicker, I'm looking at Zane Gonzalez if he was dropped for Washington, going up against New Orleans. I mean, they said he's the starting kicker for Washington. And then Cade York. Not a lot of people added Cade York. He looked pretty good last night, I thought, Howard, right? He hit everything he had to kick.
And he's dating a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, apparently, and that was
Huge.
big news.
Huge. We got to bring her to every game. Because he didn't miss 5, what was it, 3 extra points and 2 field goals. Good for Cade.
Above everything, people, it's just something that I want to reiterate. It's the playoffs. Don't get cute. Don't overthink your matchups. You put your best team forward, right? I mean, this whole like rinky dink, I'm going to play this crap mediocre wide receiver because he's got a great matchup over a good, solid, regularly targeted wide receiver who's in a bad matchup. Like, do not get overly cute with your rosters. Like, we will help you here and help make those decisions for you. But in all honesty, you don't want to get like crazy with it and diving way too deep. You're going to end up burning yourself. And then you're going to end up getting all pissed off and finishing out the fantasy football season with a loss. And you're going to feel like a schmuck doing it. So just be careful with that. I just want you to make sure.
Yeah, think about that. Sure. You got to have, I mean, if a good tiebreaker is, say, what's going to make you feel more stupid on Tuesday morning if you lose?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Because, it's those little things that why'd I do that feeling, that'll stick with you. That'll stick with you.
Couple of last minute questions here. Here we go. Justin Herbert or Drake May?
Herbert. I'm going Herbert still. He's just been more consistent.
And are you in on Josh Downs?
It have to be a deep, full PPR format because the quality of target, like the targets have kind of been there, but the quality's been lower, so he's not really catching. You get 7 targets, catches 3 of them. It's kind of dicey. Just to finish on that Herbert thought is he's running the ball a decent amount, so like there's not much difference between what Herbert and May are being asked to do. Herbert's just a better quarterback with a better team right
now. One more from Jerry. Jonathan Brooks, what does this do for Dynasty?
Wait,
I don't know. Same thing. Just leave him on your roster. I mean, it's a dynasty league. You should have like, if it's a traditional dynasty league, you should have benches deep enough to withstand an ACL injury to a running back that you just stash him on your IR and you see what happens afterwards, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point of dynasty, that you believe in the talent and you think this guy's going to get back to full speed. I mean, Frank Gore tore his ACL twice. J.K. Dobbins looked good this year before he got hurt again, but he's been hurt like 19 times. Like, you just got to hope that he comes back and he's the guy you thought he was, because you're not going to get anything close to fair values. You can't trade him.
Here we go from Joshua. Washington or Denver defense this week? How would you prioritize?
Washington has New Orleans. Denver has Indy. I would go Denver. They've just been better defense.
Yeah, I agree. With having Kyler and good running back, wide receiver, tight end depth, how would you prioritize Herbert, Bigsby, Taylor, and the defense picked above? I mean, I would say if you're set with depth, all right, Patrick Taylor would be first for me. If Garendo is, still banged up, you got to listen for some news here tonight. But I would say for me, Coop, I'm going Taylor, Bigsby, Herbert, defense.
Exactly. always prioritize anyone that would crack your lineup this week.
Yeah.
Right. So if Taylor would crack your lineup, go with him. If Taylor wouldn't crack your lineup, like Bigsby probably has a more sustainable role. And then if you're not going to start Herbert over Kyler, which I wouldn't, Kyler's playing the Patriots, then you don't necessarily need to go crazy grabbing Herbert.
DeAndre Hopkins, Devonta Smith.
Let me see. Hopkins had a decent game, but once again, I don't think he played a big snap share. Let me just double check on that. Yeah, 55% again. I think I would still go with Devonta Smith. No Dallas Goedert. I mean, it's Devonta Smith as of this moment.
Agreed. Anthony Richardson, Matthew Stafford, or Jameis Winston?
Matthew Stafford's looked incredible lately. Yeah. Stafford.
And having Kupp and Nakua, I mean, it's such a huge thing for him. Huge thing for him. So
Puka Nakua is like, dude, he'll make the craziest catch and he won't even acknowledge it. He'll just jogs back to the huddle. I know it's just crazy.
That's the kind of player you want on your roster,
right?
Man.
He's like, yeah, not a big deal. He's like, that's just what I do.
Bucky Irving, Jalen Warren, or Jerome Ford. If he's fine and good to play, I'm going to use Bucky this week.
Absolutely. Bucky's just had he's been awesome when he's healthy. So just keep an eye on the health, but Bucky over those two. If Bucky's out, I might go Jerome Ford just because Najee and Warren, like they put Cordell Patterson in for like 10 snaps a game, and it's just like he ends up playing like 30% of the snaps. Warren does. Ford got 10 carries and ran all the routes. So
yeah. Final question here, and then we got to scoot on out of here. Hope wants to know, Deebo Samuel, what are we doing? Depends on who your options are.
Yeah. Our buddy Ryan Heath put the separation numbers up there. Ayuk was number 1 on the season. Juwan Jennings, number 35. Deebo Samuel, wide receiver, 85. He's just not getting open. So all he's getting is carries and screens because he's not getting open. So, I mean, if you have other options, you got to look there. I think I had him ranked like wide receiver 40 this week. He's been bad. He's been bad.
So there you have it. Once again, we thank everybody for tuning in here to Alarm Fantasy Football. Coop and I will be back again tomorrow, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Go check out everything that we've got going on over at fantasyalarm.com. And if you don't subscribe, be on the lookout for the next week or so as we prep for the holiday season specials that usually arrive. But for now, that's going to do it for us. For Andrew Cooper, I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you next time.